Hello and welcome. This is Michael. Welcome to week three. Thanks, everybody, for all the work you've done this week. I know last week was a challenge. I think you all did a great job of expressing the difficulties you had, and hopefully, I was helpful in order to make you feel productive. The goal was twofold. If we looked at the module and thought about last week, we realized the world is awash with data, and that data is all encompassing. It really is everything. It isn't just numbers, it's pictures, it's files, it's a pretty massive amount of stuff. And our job is to find some stuff that we're interested in so that we can learn organization principles and end up with even displays of how other people can use or become productively active in making decisions based on seeing stuff. So part one is stuff, and I wanted to finish that up. Part two, or this part this week, is about how do we discern patterns. And so if we look at week three and we look at patterns and grouping, we're looking for how do we recognize, given this stuff that we have, which right now is a database, and databases to me are just sort of the base level of slightly organized, but a little bit better than nothing. So if we looked at that database, we'd say, well, what are the patterns within it? How could we start to see groupings? How also do we misinterpret things as groups? Because we as humans are pretty good at pattern recognition. So there's some stuff here about, there's an artist that I really like who sort of makes a joke out of removing all the actual text out of an image. So you see the image itself, and then you see all the text that was in it. So we're used to seeing text in context, and even if you're looking at something in a grid, you might think that there's meaning when there isn't. So we're trying to learn patterns and anti-patterns of how we say, yes, here's how we're definitely going to organize or understand this data. And there's also a movie about Gestalt theory, which I think I pronounced correctly, but either way, I love the concept of Gestalt. It was brought up or created to sort of give a group of semi-scientific names around how we perceive information. And so there's a little movie about that, as well as many blog articles that I wrote about how the different principles are used in interaction design. So take a look at that as we begin the week. And then we go over to Mural. And let me just comment on week two. And if we go over to the outline and we take a look at. So thank you for everyone contributing. I hope those two movies, it sounds like they were very thought-provoking. They were meant to be. If we go over to our exploration of Twitter, that was also a great thing that many people didn't realize what Twitter was or what it was used for and what is the realm that it exists in. And I think that that's a good learning thing, because Twitter is a absolute mountain of information, but it's not particularly reliable, and it isn't in any way organized except by the way people organize it. So you might have found many issues where there just is no information whatsoever, and that's because there isn't, no one has contributed that. However, there might be something like a playoff game where there would be a mountain of information that would come and go within a small period of time, which is kind of Twitter's forte, which is things that are very temporal. But it's many things to many people, so it is a great source. You can build, as we looked at our mid videos, you don't have to own or create your own databases. You could just reuse other people's databases and try to make it interesting to other people, and that is a great way for fun and profit. So that's one thing we're learning, is by organizing principles on top of data services. That's as good enough way as any to create value. So we talked a little bit about how to scrape data from sites. So the goal was, hey, if there's a site I found interesting that's data oriented. So I think I had some examples of what data oriented sites look like. And if you are still struggling, I think that you could still do that. There's MoMA, there's movie stills. I think I might not have put it in here. There's the Poetry Foundation that my wife is involved in. The poetryfoundation.org has tons of poems on it. So there's a lot of data-oriented sites, and those are fine to take that data and to repurpose it or recontextualize it. So last of all, we kind of looked at data types. So in order to understand what you have to work with, date, time, text, numbers, all those things sort of have to be understood so that you understand the building blocks that you have to work with. And then lastly, as always, I'm very happy to have people put their in progress work here for feedback. And I think if you have turned off the email updates from this, what you might miss is that I am oftentimes in the corner here commenting on someone's work that I do think is applicable to everyone in the class. So if you're missing my comments or other people's comments, you're missing out on a real important part of, I think, what makes this particular using Mural, especially, and what makes online learning unique, which is that we can, kind of treat this as something that can get our attention, we can contribute to, and move on in a more natural way, which means we're not in class for 3 hours a day, but we might be contributing over the period of 5 or 6 days, 2 or 3 hours of commenting and work. So I think I've seen that work out pretty well. If you do have questions as to the method behind this, please contact me or post it on Mural. So going to this week, week 3, I just teed up a few more questions. So our goal is to understand pattern and to try to figure out what is your data relating to. And I kind of cheated a little bit. I know some people were using books. So I said, okay, if it's books, then it's books. Or in this case, somebody put in textbooks. And so let me make sure textbooks are books, but yes, maybe they have unique characteristics to them. And then, what are the data types that are part of a pattern? So when I think of books, the things that organize a book to me are authors. So author, hopefully maybe they've written more than one book, and publish date. When that to me is kind of the only two organizing principles I could think of offhand. And I also did one for my perfume exploration. So these are some examples right now of what is a hierarchy, how could you start to organize. So that's what I'm looking for your contributions and comments on right away. As we move into later in the week, what I'm trying to figure out is what value are you going to add to this data now that you've understood it or that you've recognized the patterns within. What kind of situation can you set up that you think would be valuable to an end user? And then lastly, we're going to talk a bit about the Gestalt principles or Gestalt principles. And the thought is to take a URL, probably a website that you think is well organized or poorly organized, meaning that it has anti-patterns in it, and put it within this 2x2 for us to look at and comment and kind of have fun understanding and trying out Gestalt. So that's week 3. I'll be also grading your contributions, and if you have any questions on that, just do that privately. Hopefully I'll get through that by the end of the week. And thanks so much.